You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's a crossover edition here of Locked On Kentucky and Locked On Hoosiers. Lance Dawe, Jacob Goins hanging out here with you. And Jacob, we've been meaning to do this show for a couple of months, actually. And it was kind of like, let's hold off, let's wait. Let's see what these teams do with the offseason and what they're going to do building their respective teams. And here we are in June, ready to set the table for what should be I think a revitalization of one of college basketball's best rivalries. Goins of Locked On Hoosiers here for those of you that are watching from the Locked On Kentucky perspective. Going to be breaking down both these two teams and the rivalry. Let's start there, Jacob. We got 4 games. We were talking about this before we recorded. Only one at Indiana, but 4 games between these two storied programs. Just how excited are you to get this rivalry back going once again?
Well, I'm excited, and Indiana fans are excited. We're salty that we only get one game inside of Assembly Hall, one of the greatest cathedrals of college basketball in the history of the sport. But that's okay. We'll go play in a football stadium where Indiana will have a bunch of fans in NDS. But I was telling you, Kentucky fans are crazy, man. You guys are going to travel just as well and get in the door, and especially with so many seats, it'll be a wild game. And then 2 of them being at Rupp Arena. I don't know what happened there. I don't know how Indiana got shafted, but it is what it is. The fact of the matter, though, this is going to be an awesome game. And this is a rivalry. These are 2 of the biggest brands in the sport. I don't care that Indiana hasn't been good recently. Both teams are in a new era now with Mark Pope with a year under his belt, Darian DeVries getting started in Bloomington. This game always needs to be on the schedule. It needs to happen, Lance. You've got 2 of the best fan bases in college basketball. It's been almost a decade since these 2 teams have played. This is something that is crucial for Indiana's season in terms of a possible resume builder. We get to go to Rupp for the first matchup of this series. Really, really excited for December 20th inside Rupp Arena.
It's going to be a big one. And I think for Kentucky fans, you know, some of the non-con games that they've played, I think over the last couple of seasons have been against teams that have beaten them recently. And it's kind of been a rematch or revenge of sorts for a couple of different programs. And for Indiana, look, this has been a rivalry that Kentucky leads right now, 32-25 in terms of all-time victories. But the Hoosiers have taken 2 out of the last 3, dating back to 2011. Obviously, that big buzzer beater there in Assembly Hall back in December of 2011. But this is going to be a very fun one inside Rupp Arena. I agree with you. I think it's bull that Indiana only gets 1 game in Assembly Hall. We were talking about it before we started recording. I'm so tired, and you just said the same thing. I'm so tired of playing college basketball games in college football or football arenas or what have you. I'm tired of playing, like, you can say what you want about like Syracuse playing in the Carrier Dome and it being iconic and fun and whatever, but like for NCAA tournament stuff and for non-con stuff like this, stop playing in football stadiums.
Yes,
Stop it. It is so hard to shoot the basketball consistently in that environment relative to a smaller arena. I want to see more games home and home. I'm so tired of seeing these neutral site games, and that goes for college football as well. But
yes, it does.
I want to go back to what you were just saying about Indiana and how this could be a resume building win, because this would also theoretically be a quad 1 win, almost definitely for Kentucky as well if they were able to find a way to win this one. But for Indiana, we saw this with Kentucky last season. Early wins against Duke, Gonzaga, making big time splashes in the non-con slate that ended up mattering quite a bit, actually, when we got to the NCAA tournament. A lot of people like to say, oh, games in November don't matter. Oh, these non-conference wins or losses, they don't matter. Jacob, this could be huge for Indiana if they found a way to win this one.
It absolutely could, because in Indiana's perspective, you're talking about Kentucky getting big wins in November, December that helped them not just make the tournament, but make a run in the tournament. Look at what happened to Indiana last year. We played the likes of Louisville and Gonzaga and teams like that and got embarrassed. We lost those games and they weren't even close. And Indiana, if you remember, Lance, we were one of the first teams left out of the NCAA tournament. And it's because our non-conference resume was terrible and we struggled to get wins over teams like Chattanooga. In the big games we played, we couldn't get wins. And so now you have a chance, and it's a new coach, a new roster, a new staff, everything like that, which we're going to get to. But this is an opportunity for Indiana to make a statement, for Darian DeVries and this staff and this team to say, hey, Indiana's been down, but no longer is that the case. You can get a statement win over a Kentucky squad that's going to be really, really good, and you could do it on the road. You start talking quad one opportunities. I mean, any way you look at this, it's a huge prime opportunity for Indiana to get a win, build a resume, make a statement as well. Not going to be easy. By no means am I saying that, but compared to last year where you just missed out on the tournament, you have this game and Marquette is on the schedule for now is what we know for Indiana. Non-con, 2 opportunities to make a statement in year 1 under head coach Darian DeVries.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is like you can kind of it's refreshing, and this happened to me last offseason whenever Mark Pope kind of entered the fold. It was kind of a reset of sorts. Yeah. It was kind of refreshing to see all of these different changes at once, not just to the staff and the roster, but the way that you approach the schedule. Obviously, with Kentucky, Indiana here on the slate, and some other big time matchups for both of these respective programs. Just how for you, how has it been with DeVries and kind of this new reset for Indiana, a team that has been starving for some legitimate basketball there in Indiana?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I know we're going to talk about last season's results and kind of what happened with the firing of Mike Woodson at Indiana and right. the over exceeding expectations for Kentucky, I think, getting to a Sweet 16. But I've talked a lot about how Darian DeVries, I call him Dark Knight DeVries, how he can almost be a copycat of what Mark Pope did at Kentucky in year 1. Come in, have little to no expectations other than we're a winning brand of basketball, bring in some studs in the transfer portal, and go out and beat some people. That's what Indiana can do in 2025 and 2026. And again, I say we try to copy what Mark Pope did. I would like us to, no offense, play a little bit more defense than Kentucky did a year ago. But if we can score 100 points like Kentucky did, then we're going to be something serious. And so it is, man. It's just refreshing. It's a restart. It's something where you're hoping this one sticks, because the last couple of coaches at Indiana just have not worked out. You thought they were going to. It made sense at the time, and then, my goodness, it didn't. Some flamed out for off-court things. Some of them just couldn't figure out how to win. And so that's where Indiana's at. Now, it's pretty much a wait-and-see game in Bloomington, but for you guys in Lexington, seems like expectations now are through the absolute roof.
I've been trying to hold myself back over these last few weeks about like trying to get like, okay, what are my actual expectations? Am I just pumping sunshine here now that we've got all these transfers in, or does Kentucky actually have a legitimate shot at doing something that they've not done in over half a decade, which is make a deep run in the NCAA tournament? And after looking at all the pieces, man, I think I am on the Mark Pope hype train. I think this is very real in 2025, 2026. We'll get to the last season's results for both of these squads, how maybe some things went well for Kentucky, how some things didn't go so well for Indiana, and then we'll reset here with expectations for 2025, 2026, all coming up on a crossover edition of Locked On Kentucky and Locked On Hoosiers. But first, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are winding down, and every night has delivered highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action, and FanDuel makes it really easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And if you want to lay something down over on FanDuel, I would direct you to the national championship odds for 2026. Kentucky, one of the national championship favorites, actually at plus 1,700. You've also got Indiana here at plus 6,000. Jacob, do you like those odds? Are you comfortable with that? Is that something that you would take a look at?
I mean, hey, top 25 in terms of national title odds. I'm not making any complaints for Indiana. And if you're Kentucky, yeah, maybe sprinkle a little something on them, because I'm a believer in Mark Pope too.
It's going to be really interesting to see just how the pool shakes out. You've also got some other big-time programs here. Houston, the leader of the pack here at plus 1,100. Purdue at plus 1,200, coming in for an exhibition in Rupp Arena later this year. Should be pretty exciting. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. You can head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. You can make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, continuing along here on a crossover edition of Locked On Kentucky and Locked On Hoosiers. Lance Dawe, Jacob Goins hanging out here with you. If you have not subscribed to either of our YouTube channels or podcast feeds, would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Leave a comment, let us know what you think about the Cats and the Hoosiers this upcoming season. And Jacob, let's take it back to last year for a little bit.
Do we have to? Do we have to?
You know, I'm going to drag you back to it because I remember there were various moments last season where you and I would meet up at sporting events, and I'd be like, first thing I'm asking about is how's it going with Indiana, man? And it was pretty rough. A 19-13 season. Mike Woodson gets fired. Hoosiers looking to reset things. Kind of break down how the madness unfolded a season ago.
Well, it was a parting of ways, Lance. They parted ways. Nobody was fired. Nobody quit. It was a parting ways, retired, stepped down, whatever stupid language you want to use. He lost his job. All right. Mike Woodson lost his job because he just simply wasn't good at it. And it's unfortunate. Again, I thought it was something that made sense. It made sense at the time. It was one. It's like, oh, Indiana legend. He was beloved by Bob Knight, coached in the NBA. Just bring that to the college level. And it wasn't working out. Recruiting wasn't where it needed to be. The wins and losses weren't where they needed to be. And the fan support was nearly gone for what he was doing. And you kind of saw that throughout the entire season. I told you a little bit about the non-conference slate where Indiana played, again, the likes of South Carolina, Louisville, Gonzaga, and Providence. And whoop-de-doo, you beat South Carolina in Providence, but Louisville and Gonzaga made you look silly. And then you get into Big Ten play where you get a couple of wins, right? You beat Minnesota, then you lose to Nebraska again. You go through and you finally get back at Penn State after going 0 for 2 the year before, but then you drop games to Northwestern and Maryland. You go on a 5-game losing streak, but don't worry, we go to East Lansing and get a win. We also beat Purdue at one point last year. But then you go and lose to Oregon in the Big Ten tournament. You lose to them twice in your last 3 games. So it was the same issues as it has been for quite some time. Indiana struggled to score. Our defense on the perimeter was bad, and the effort and foul trouble just got this team into bad situations time and time again. Every single time that they had a chance to build momentum with a win or two, they would just completely fumble it by losing to somebody they shouldn't or getting blown out in a big-time game. And so last year was just not fun. It wasn't exciting. It was a train that was heading towards a wall, and everybody saw it 2 or 3 months in advance. In comparison to what you guys had in Lexington, year one, which is what we're about to go through with a brand new head coach, ton of talent there on a team that was expected to compete in the SEC, and all of a sudden they were one of the most exciting offensive teams in all of college basketball, your Kentucky Wildcats.
I remember heading into the season and being scared because I'm a huge analytics nerd. I love looking at what Ken Pom, Torvik, Evan Mia, what do the numbers guys have to say about college basketball. And Kentucky, the preseason rank on Ken Pom was 43rd. And I was sitting there before the season started going, oh no, if they aren't high on this Kentucky squad, what sort of season are we in for? And then you see over the course of the first 2 games, Kentucky dropping 100+ points on both opponents. And it's obviously Wright State and Bucknell, but at the same time, you saw the offense, you saw the vision with what Mark Pope wanted to put together. And you were concerned about athleticism. You were concerned about defense. You were concerned about rim protection. Heading into that Duke game, I remember thinking if we could just this was a half-year-long buildup for me. As someone doing the show, I'm like, if we can find a way to win this game, if we can find a way to beat Duke, it will legitimize everything that we've been saying about Mark Pope and this program now that John Calipari has walked out. And if you remember correctly, that Duke game, Kentucky was down big at half. They were down by 15 plus. They were on the way to getting blown out because they could not stop the ball. They could not protect the rim. And then all of a sudden in the second half, they just flipped a switch. Seniority overcame some of the youth on that Duke squad. Kentucky hit some shots. They got back into it. And at the end of the game, Cooper Flagg fumbled it away as he did time and time again. Big moments last season. Shocker. After that point, I mean, it was just pedal to the metal, everything's great. We're riding this euphoric high of, oh my gosh, we beat what ends up being one of the best teams in the nation. Probably should have made it to the national championship game had it not been for Cooper Flagg and company fumbling the game away against the Houston Cougars. Houston. Wow, look at me go. But no, the non-con slate was a bit kind of up and down after that point. You lose to Clemson on the road in a game that I think that you should have found a way to win. Just hit open shots. That way, if you hit open shots and prevent them from grabbing so many offensive rebounds, that's a game that you should have won. Then you go to all the way up to Seattle. Similar situation to Duke. You see a top 10 team in Gonzaga. You're getting your butt whipped at the rim. Graham Ike is just cramming it down your throat. It is just such a rough game for you defensively. And then all of a sudden in the second half, you turn it on, you start hitting shots, you win in overtime. You beat Louisville, which will always be great. And much to the chagrin of their fans, we're heading into this season with a little bit of a renewed rivalry. I'm kind of talking about rivalries here. I'm excited to see just how badly we beat them in the KFC Yum Center later this year. Then you lose to Ohio State by 20. That sucks. And so you kind of have this mixed bag looking up, right? Duke, Gonzaga, you lose to Clemson. You should have won that game. You lose to Ohio State by 20, and they weren't that good. And you're kind of trying to figure out what exactly is going on here. And the conference slate didn't really give you any answers either. You beat Florida. Hey, by the way, Kentucky got one over the national champions. Just want to point that out. You beat Mississippi State. You beat Texas A&M, but you lose to Georgia. You lose to Vanderbilt in a game that you should have won. That was just so infuriating. That Georgia game was probably the angriest I've ever been as a fan at a sporting event. Just hands down. I came on this show with glasses and an officiating outfit talking about how they were blind for 30 minutes.
Been there.
You beat Tennessee on the road after losing 2 straight, which was huge. And then you lose to Arkansas. Let's not talk about it. After that game.
That game was awesome. I'm sorry. That game was awesome.
It was something. February 4th, you lose to Mississippi 98-84. Mark Pope cuts his hand open, punching a chair, apparently at halftime. Angry. Allegedly. Irate over the defense. Jacob, we were 12th in adjusted defensive efficiency after playing Ole Miss. We finished the year 51st. Because after that point, you started to play a little bit of lighter competition and you shut them down defensively. You kind of got both things going. And then obviously the big thing for Kentucky was finding a way to win in the NCAA tournament. And of course they beat Troy, led by Connerway, who's now a Hoosier, I might add. And then they go and beat Illinois in a game that I don't know if I've ever been that stressed in my life, especially in front of a group of people. I was in Dallas actually helping with Amazon's Locked On bracket coverage. And I was just sitting in the room with my hands in my face, just trying not to say anything. Just because I didn't want to be weird. But man, I was so locked on for that game. Losing to Tennessee kind of sucked the way that it did, but man, talk about just a roller coaster of good and bad. Some really high highs, some really questionable lows. It was a fun season. It was one of my favorite seasons I've ever had doing the show. I know it just went on a very long tangent, but man, I've not really sat down since the season ended and talk about just how much I appreciate the players, Pope, just the roller coaster that was. I loved every second of it, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, from the outside watching Kentucky, that team was awesome. They were so much fun to watch. Not that I like Kentucky or cheering for Kentucky, but Jim, in terms of when they were on TV on Saturday afternoon, and I think a lot of that was the SEC too, just being so good top to bottom, where I hope the Big Ten can get to that point. Big Ten's top heavy. It's like in football. It's extremely top heavy. Purdue, as much as it hurts me to say, they're going to be one of the best teams in college basketball this year. Yeah. But you start looking at the teams at the bottom, the Northwesterns and the Ohio States of the world. It's just, it's tough to watch it all the way through. But Kentucky was an exciting team, which is what I hope Indiana can be. And I think we probably will, because we bring in a ton of 3-point shooters. And I know we're getting expectations here in just a moment, but we brought in a bunch of shooters, a bunch of athletic dudes who I think are just going to get up and down the floor. What Kentucky did a year ago is what I want Indiana to do this year, and more expectation things coming in a moment. But Kentucky was a fun team to watch last year, I have to admit.
It was entertaining. And to be honest with you, again, I'm not like you said, I'm not an Indiana fan. But after seeing this team kind of struggle through essentially my lifetime, after being such a prestigious school, I am excited for you guys to see what happens in year one under DeVries. I am really fired up about this transfer portal class. And I said it a couple of episodes ago, this Indiana team, they need to be ranked. They need to get some attention here heading into this season, because they may be pretty good. They may be one of the best of the Big Ten. I'm pretty fired up about it. Let's get to expectations here for 2025, 2026. Let's talk about both of these rosters, because there's a lot of new faces, obviously, for both these programs. We'll get to that in just a second right here on this crossover edition of Locked On Kentucky and Locked On Hoosiers. All right, wrapping up this crossover edition. Jacob Goins, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Jacob, let's waste no time. Let's go ahead and get into it. I've got the roster pulled up here. I'm sure you do as well. I want to know, educate me as let's just say for a second, I don't know ball, which, as we all know, I just in fact do. Let's walk through this Indiana kind of revitalization here with the transfer portal. You got one recruit in, you got a new head coach, you got a new staff. Break it down for me. What am I looking at here?
Well, it's legitimately a completely new team. There is not a single player from last year's team that will be playing for Indiana this season. They either graduated, ran out of eligibility, or went somewhere else. And that includes a couple of good players like Malik Renew, who went to Miami. That's Mackenzie Mbako, who ended up going to Texas A&M, a guy you're going to see this year in the SEC. But I was okay with it, honestly. I was. With Mike Woodson being removed as head coach, I was ready for everything to be cleaned out. The roster, the staff, the head coach, his office included. I was ready for everything to go and start over. And that's exactly what Darian DeVries did. He gets hired from West Virginia. Their fans are still upset about it. He comes in and he had legitimately nothing to work with except one high school recruit in Trent Sicily, who I think is really, really good. He's a top 75 player. He will have a role on this team, but DeVries had to build this thing from the ground up. And so he went and hit the portal extremely hard. He brings in Tucker DeVries, his son, who was injured a year ago, but 2 years ago was one of the top players in the Big 12. He scores to over 20 points a game. He shoots at over 35% from three. He's a guy who's going to be one of the best small forwards in college basketball. He also lands Lamar Wilkerson, top 15 player. I know, you know the guy. Yep, I know you know. That was one of the few times we've had in recent memory, Lance, where Kentucky and Indiana were in a legit battle, and it came down to the end, and Indiana is the one that comes out on top. He's a top 15 scorer in the country, man. He can shoot it over 40% from three. He's going to be the rock of this team. And then you go get Reed Bailey, a Davidson transfer, 6'10". He's going to be your starting center. I think those three guys will be the face of Indiana basketball this season. You mentioned guys like Connerway. You bring in Connor Enright from DePaul. You bring in an Elon transfer, a couple of North Florida guys. I mean, you've just built this on solid players. Is there anybody other than Wilkerson and DeVries that's just crazy talented and good and just going to blow you away on paper? No, maybe not. But I think you just got a lot of dudes on this team. And how will they gel? How will they mesh? How will they all play together? Couldn't tell you. We're going to have to wait and see. But you've got a lot of really good players. And Indiana fans are a little worried about the size at the 5 spot, but I think the size 1 through 4 is really, really competitive. And this team's going to score a lot more points than they did a year ago.
That was the thing that I was going to bring it up later, is like the big concern for me is like, what are y'all going to do at center? If foul trouble starts to become a consistent issue? Like how are you going to rotate? Like, is it going to be Alexis? Like what's going to happen there?
Yeah, I mean, Sam Alexis, the backup from Florida, who didn't play a ton, especially down the stretch on their national title run. I've gotten word from our friend Brandon at Locked On Gators that Sam Alexis is somebody who could be good, just never really came to fruition at Florida. So he's going to be in there. And honestly, Lance, I think you're going to see a lot of small ball. I think you're going to see a lot of smaller lineups because Darian DeVries has talked about how he wants this team to get up and down the floor, not play 5-on-5 basketball, and score within the first 10 or 12 seconds of a possession. And if you have big men on the floor, it's hard to do that. And so if you do get into foul trouble, or you are going up against a team like Kentucky who can score the basketball, you have to match that somehow. So maybe you play some smaller guys, play a couple of traditional 4s with some traditional guards as well, and see how all that works. But I think the roster is going to be okay. People seem to think that 6'10" is not tall. Have you met somebody who's 6'10" before? You still look up at them when you talk. I think they're going to be okay. I like the roster where it's at. I think it's pretty set in stone at this point. So I think Indiana's going to be just fine.
One of the things that I am actually pretty interested to see, talk about small ball and how that's probably going to be the face of this team and how they're probably going to score a lot more points than they did a season ago. Look, West Virginia had a top 15 defense a season ago under DeVries. They had a top 15 defense according to Ken Palm. That's something that I'm keeping my eye on, is with maybe the lack of height that they have across the board, or at least at the center position, I should say.
Yeah.
What do they look like defensively? Are they still able to bring that intensity? Are they still able to protect the 3-point line like West Virginia did a season ago? Are they still able to create some turnovers, just get just alter shots in any way, shape, or form? If they're able to do that, maybe even in a game like at Kentucky, you're going to find yourself in a lot of ball games. And in the Big Ten, I can only imagine if you're able to shut teams down consistently, you're going to be winning a lot of games. I would be intrigued to see in year one if DeVries and company could not make a legitimate push for the Big Ten title. I know that Purdue is here. I know that Michigan State's here. I am very curious about who he is as a coach. And maybe let's go there for a second. This is a guy at Drake that was there for a hot minute and did nothing but win. Yep. It's very interesting just how good the Bulldogs have been, by the way, just kind of quietly over there in the MVC.
They just keep finding coaches.
He did nothing but win. And then with a West Virginia squad that was kind of an afterthought in a very good Big 12, 19-13, 500 in conference play. With all of these players, with all of this talent that he's bringing in to Indiana, things could get interesting in Bloomington. And I'm not a fan, but I kind of want to see it happen. I kind of want to see something new in the Big Ten.
Well, then there's the flip side of you guys in Lexington with Mark Pope, who was, that's about as good of a year one as you could ask for. Again, I will say it until I die. Indiana in year one under Darian DeVries, if we get anything like what Mark Pope did in Lexington in year one, Sweet 16, get some big time wins and have a chance, give it to me. Sign my name right there, because you guys had a fun year last year. I expect that to be the case this year with some big time recruits, Otega Owe coming back and some other transfer portal additions. Kentucky's roster is pretty stacked, my friend.
So what Kentucky did this offseason, at least it looks like it, and this seems to be the consensus. This is not like me with a revelation or anything. What Mark Pope did is he looked at how they performed in the SEC last season, and he realized we're not athletic enough, we're not strong enough, and we don't play defense consistently enough. And so he went out and got players that are going to do just that for the Wildcats. There are concerns some people have, at least some fans do, about whether or not Kentucky can shoot at as high of a clip as they did a season ago. And frankly, regardless of what the transfer portal class looked like, I don't even know if they could replicate the way that they shot the 3-ball last season. But you bring in guys like Mo Diabate, just a really hard-nosed physical forward from Alabama that's going to do a ton of dirty work for you. You bring in Jaden Quains, which I think is the sole reason why Kentucky should be a top 5 preseason team and has all of these expectations to go deep into the NCAA tournament, because he is, in my opinion, the best defender in the country. He is the best rim protector in the nation, and he was one of the best in the nation at 17 in the Big 12. I'm very interested to see what Mark Pope's able to do with him, a guy that at this point is known for getting some of these whether they're 5 stars or not, kids and developing them and actually taking them to that next level, transfer portal or not. Quaintance, I think, is going to be a cornerstone of this team. As long as he's healthy, he's going to make this Kentucky team go, because if you can't score consistently on the inside and Kentucky is able to at least replicate some of what they were doing on offense a season ago, those things, you start like I'm saying with Indiana, you start to win a lot of ball games. It's not going to come easy, obviously, night in and night out, but that was Kentucky's main issue a season ago. They could not stop the ball at the rim. You got somebody that can, and you've got a great offensive mind. Things should go boom. That's just kind of where it starts and ends for me. You got a really interesting prospect in Cam Williams, a freshman from Tulane that was a 40+% 3-point shooter. Apparently NBA scouts are all over this kid, especially now that he's in a blue and white uniform. You've got Denzel Aberdeen, who was a national champion at Florida a season ago. Not the most efficient guy, but you love the experience, and you would expect him to take a step forward in his final year with Mark Pope. And then you got the recruiting class. And this was kind of, it was interesting the way that this ended up kind of finalizing. So Caden Lewis, who was one of the top point guards in the nation, ended up committing to Villanova. He was the guy that I was the most excited about in this class, which sucked. And then they went out and obviously got Denzel Aberdeen. Otega Owe's coming back, which is just something that people, I think, are just kind of brushing over. Oh, a potential All-American is returning to Kentucky.
Well, they shouldn't, because that kid's he's a dude. He's a
dog.
Yeah.
I think that this gives more opportunity with a Caden out for Jasper Johnson and Jalen Lowe, the transfer from Pitt, to get a ton of run. I expect big things from Lowe this season, somebody that was super inefficient shooting the ball last season because Pitt ran him into the dirt. They used him on every single possible play that they could, shooting, distributing. This kid's going to be in a much more comfortable situation here. He had a broken finger last year. I think his numbers are going to go up. I think he's going to look a lot better. Jasper was one of the best scorers in all of high school basketball a season ago. I expect him, we'll get to that in a second. I expect him to be a good scorer. I expect him to be a very, very fun player to watch. And then you got guys like, you add Braden Hawthorne towards the end of the cycle, a top 35 prospect who I did not expect to commit to Kentucky. I thought he was going elsewhere. I thought he was going to recommit to West Virginia or something. And here he is now with the Cats. This is a very, very good recruiting class. This is a very, very good transfer portal class. You're going to see that across the board on recruiting rankings, on portal sites. But man, I am so excited about all these different guys. And you've got, I didn't even mention Andrea Jelovic, who might even start at power forward, the 6'11" Croatian, who could end up being what we wanted Zvonimir Ivasic to be. But the fun thing about this offseason, Jacob, for this Kentucky team, and this may be where I leave it, is that we have absolutely no freaking idea what the starting lineup is going to look like. I mean, this is something that has just been a raging battle on Twitter, in my comment section, and on my show ever since this kind of got finalized. And as we were building this roster, is what on earth is this rotation going to look like? Some people are calling for a platoon again. Who knows? We may see something similar to that. Yeah. But outside of Otega and Jalen Lowe, you could make the argument for every other position, like 3 through 5. And honestly, when it comes to the 1, I mean, you could really talk yourself into splitting minutes between Lowe and Jasper if that's what you want to do. Otega is probably the only guy in this lineup that I'm like surefire, like, okay, he's going to be a starter. He's going to play a ton of minutes. Outside of that, it's about as balanced as you could have possibly asked for. I'm thrilled.
Which is a great problem to have, and one that if you're a Kentucky fan, you trust Mark Pope and his staff to figure it out because they did a year ago. And Indiana, I mentioned Lamar Wilkerson, Tucker DeVries, and Reed Bailey. That's about all I know for now in terms of what I would be confident in saying is in the starting 5. The 2 and the 4, it's going to take a little bit because there are so many good players and ones that I really do think it depends on what team you're playing, the matchups you have, what strategy you're going for Indiana and Darian DeVries. And so I'll leave it with this in terms of expectations postseason wise for the Cats and for the Hoosiers. I'll say it for Indiana. We just want to make the tournament, man. Just get to the tournament. We haven't been there in a while. When we did, we played like crap. So just get us to the tournament, give us a little bit of hope. And after that, then we can start to build and build and I guess list real expectations, right? Compete in the big games this year. Quit losing to teams like Northwestern. We're really tired of that. And beat Purdue at one point this year because they're going to be really, really good. So for the Hoosiers, it's making the NCAA tournament because it's year 1. Some fans will say get to the Sweet 16 like Kentucky did. That's a big, big ask. I'm just saying make it to the tournament in year 1 and we go from there. For Kentucky, is it to get past the Sweet 16? Are we talking Elite 8, Final 4 here, Mr. Lance?
I'll say this about Northwestern. Carter Bird is somewhere smiling right now. I'll say that. But for Kentucky, man, I'm not saying it's natty or bust. I'm not saying you have to go and win the whole dang thing. But the expectations are as high as they have been in the time that I've been doing the show, going on my 5th season now, which is just crazy to think about.
Congratulations.
This is the year. This is the year.
The year.
This is the year. I think Kentucky has to make a national title push. They have to go out and make a deep NCAA tournament run because they're too talented not to. Like you said, if there's any coach that's going to elevate this roster, it's Pope. We saw what he did with what people were calling just a bunch of misfit toys this season ago. You saw that. You'll see now with guys like Quaintance, with Jasper, with Aberdeen, with Diabate, with Owe back. This is a much improved team. On paper, they should be a national title contender. They should make a deep NCAA tournament run. I'm not going to put a label on it and say that, they need to make the title. They need to make the Final Four. But man, if they got to go deep. They have to go deep. Who knows? Maybe you run into a buzzsaw. Maybe you run into a Purdue, or maybe in Indiana if they're all of a sudden playing out of their minds. Maybe you run into Florida and lose. I don't know how the tournament's going to work out, but you gotta make a statement this year, man. You are too good not to.
I'll add to my expectation. We want to beat Kentucky.
There you go.
We want to win on December 20th in Rupp Arena. My goodness, it would be awesome. Do I expect it to happen? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But man, what a fun game that's going to be. Hopefully we both have fun seasons as well. And hopefully we can do this several more times, because always love talking ball with you, my friend.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is of course we'll probably break that game down more than once before the season even gets here.
Yes.
I am super excited to see how that's going to go down in Rupp. I'm more excited to see how it's going to happen, or how it's going to go down whenever we get away from Rupp Arena, because I think that's going to be even more fun to go to places like Assembly Hall. Obviously, at least for the one time. Who knows? Maybe we'll get it going here. More on the road now that John Calipari is out of the picture making the schedule. That's going to do it for this crossover edition of Locked On Kentucky and Locked On Hoosiers. You can subscribe to Locked On Kentucky wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow me on Twitter at Locked On UK. Jacob, where can Locked On Kentucky listeners find your stuff, man?
Yep, same way you find Locked On Kentucky. You could search Locked On Hoosiers on YouTube, any of your podcasting platforms as well. Follow us on X at Locked On Hoosiers.